Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Schanschieff, Managing Director and Founder of Bambino Mio. And here this afternoon to talk to you about finding the right partners for distribution internationally, specifically distributors, which is what we've used in Bambino Mio for the last 10 years. What I thought I'd do is just play you a very brief video. It's about a minute long, but at least it will give you a feeling for our brand and what we do before I talk to you a bit more about Bambino Mio and distributors in general. So apart from showing a little bit about what Bambino Mio does on there, it's a good example of one of the numerous amounts of marketing material that we supply to distributors that originates in the UK. But as you saw, there was about 5 or 6 different languages featured there that we've worked with distributors on to produce their own version of that video and many other bits of marketing material. So a little bit of history of Bambino Mio. We started nearly 17 years ago. We started with selling just reusable nappies, washable nappies. In those days, in the mid-90s, everybody used disposables. There were only about 2% of parents using reusable nappies, and they were seen as being a bit weird if they did that. 17 years on, about 30% of parents in the UK now use reusables of some form, maybe possibly all the time or part-time. So we began, like many small businesses, operating from home, selling reusable nappies and associated products by mail order. After a year, we could see the popularity of those products and started to sell small independent baby shops. That then grew. We secured our first national account in '99, which was Babies R Us, and have subsequently secured other national accounts throughout the UK. We also, at the same time, developed the brand. Within the baby market, brand is very important. People tend to come to the baby market not knowing anything about it if it's their first baby, so brand is very important. We invested very much in brand and also in our supply chain. About a third of our products are made in the UK, a third in Lithuania, and a third in China. So we developed that supply chain and grew the UK business to become one of the it is the most widely distributed reusable nappy brands in the UK. Committed to providing stylish, environmentally friendly products, and as I say, for nearly 20 years. And our range now includes not only just the reusable nappies, but lots of products within the baby market that you would look to see within the change time environment. So potty training essentials, plastics, potties, change stools, swim nappies, training pants, all sorts within the change time. And those are the sort of stores that we're represented in. We're still very niche, and the number of products we have, and in actual fact being niche, I think has helped us to get into some of these accounts. But we're very well distributed in the UK, and I'll skip through this slide, but our marketing, as is the way of the world now, and especially in baby, is very much focused on social media and digital marketing. In 2002, as the product category grew in the UK, we were faced with an option of how we grew the business from there. Either we started sticking the Bambino Mio brand on wider and wider products within the baby nursery sector, or we wanted to see whether we could find whether our product would work in other countries around the world. Like most industries, we have one big trade show every year. Ours happens to be in Cologne in September for the nursery industry. So in 2002, we took a small stand there to see what sort of interest we'd get. we met up with some people who became our first distributor in Spain, and spent 2002 working out how we could take what we'd done in terms of brand and supply chain and marketing and our products, and see how we could make it work in the Spanish market. So we launched into Spain, and then the following year went back to Cologne with a much better idea of how the international business would work. We knew that it had worked in Spain. Far more targeted. We approached potential distributors before the show and had interest from about 60 countries, I suppose. And out of that Cologne, a year later, we managed to end up with 10 distributors, what I would term our original 10 distributors. So just take it back to the map. So over the last 10 years, internationally, we've sold in about 70 countries. We're actively selling at the moment in about 40 countries throughout the world. And we have, as I said, always used the distributor model. So why have we, as a company, decided to use distributors? Well, as a small company, many of the other options, opening a local office, for example, are not really open to us. The great thing about distributors, certainly in our market, is the fact that they already have the established market relationship. So just to give you an example, most of our distributors will be distributing possibly 4 or 5 other products within the nursery market. So, I don't know, a French bottle company, a German pram company. They'll be distributing for a range of products and already have those relationships. So going into a market with a distributor means that you can benefit for those straight away, and we've certainly got examples where our product has got to market very, very quickly, literally within a few weeks of starting with a distributor, because the distributor that we're working with is trusted in already selling good products that the stores are selling. From a financial point of view, distributors are actually buying the product. So as a small company, we're not having to fund the stock. We're not having to send it out and seeing whether it will sell or not. The distributors are actually buying from us. And then especially with our product, which, as we were finding, we weren't only just a new brand to a lot of these markets, we were also a new product in the same way that we'd started in the UK, where only 2% of parents were using our sort of products in the early days. This happened to be the same in a lot of countries in which we operated. So having the local support, whether that be product training, the after-sales service, both in the appropriate language but also close by, was very important as we started out. Language-specific packaging was very important as well to give a local feel to the product, and so consumers could understand the product as they purchased it, and a bit more about that a bit later. And especially in the baby market, although it applies to many, many products, there are market regulations specific to individual countries. And having a distributor on the ground, they tended to understand those and let us know what they should be. So how do we find the distributors? Well, as I said, the first distributor we ever found was sort of just really dipping the toe in the water and seeing who would come along. But I'm glad to say after that we did have a bit more of a scientific approach to it. So certainly in the trade fairs in the early days, when we were trying to build up the numbers of countries in which we were represented, it was the work we put in before the shows and the trade fairs that sort of made it successful. So researching potential distributors, writing to them, contacting them 2 or 3 months before, maybe sending them samples, and having discussions and building up a relationship well before the show. So when they actually come and meet you at the fair, that becomes part of the negotiation process, as opposed to meeting them for the first time and then going away and maybe never hearing from them again. Market visits. Again, we did market visits in the early days to find distributors, but very targeted. We would find out the potential distributors in nursery. Again, as with lots of markets, there are only really a handful of distributors, whichever country you go into, that will be very specific to your products. So a market visit in the early days when we were looking for distributors would involve identifying 5 or 6 potential distributors, arranging meetings beforehand, going for 2 or 3 days, and also going into baby stores and finding other distributors by just talking to store owners. We've recently used UKTI. We've worked with UKTI right from when we started, but recently we've been working more and more with OMIS reports. We've been finding, like many companies, that our European markets have really suffered in the last 2 to 3 years, and the opportunities for us has been outside of Europe. So we've recently in the last 6 months, we've carried out OMIS reports in South Korea, in Vietnam, and Japan. They can be funded, they're partly funded by UKTI, as are the visits following up the report. They've been extremely useful in each market. We gave a brief, and within a month or so, we received a report back, identifying potential distributors, setting up meetings. So when we flew to the country, we could meet with potential distributors and appoint the one that fitted the bill best of all. Certainly in Korea, which was the first one we did, the report landed in May, visit was done in June, and first order was received in August, and by the end of the year we'd received over £30,000 worth of orders from them by the end of last year. Vietnam is progressing, as is Japan, and they are particularly useful, and it means that your time can be very focused. Recommendations. It's a small industry, the nursery industry, and certainly talking to other distributors or other brands is always a good way to find out who else are distributing products in your market. Many times we'll go on manufacturers' websites and see which other manufacturers, seeing which distributors they are using, and it's then very easy to get recommendations. And the desk research will allow you to check that with other brands. I think the other thing that everybody tends to get is approaches from other potential distributors. It's always quite exciting when you get an email overnight when you come into the office in the morning from a distributor in a country that you've never heard of before, and you think we can get some quite nice sales. One thing we've certainly learnt over the years is that there's a bit of work you can do before sort of investing time in that. So we've developed a questionnaire which we now send out. So a cold approach who hasn't been from a company that hasn't been researched is to send out a questionnaire asking questions about the market and various questions about their company. And I suppose 9 out of 10 times you never hear from them again because they're not prepared to even put in the work to fill in the questionnaire. And the theory goes that if they don't put in the work there, then the interest is only very marginal. So how do we support our distributors once they've been appointed? We certainly give them exclusive distribution within the market. I know it varies from industry to industry. But within the distribution, we are expecting them to advertise and promote the product within the country which they're operating. So to allow them to do that with confidence, we give them exclusive distribution within the market. We can give them support and advice, which we've been able to build up over the years. Having done it now for 10 years, we're learning all the time from other distributors what works, what doesn't work. And also the UK, is, despite the countries we're distributing in, is still our biggest market by far. And certainly in our industry, in our product category, is quite competitive and more advanced, so we can take that good practice and share it with our distributors. Things like the video, which I showed you at the outset, but many marketing materials that we're developing either for ourselves or other distributors can be shared. We have a bespoke website in that we have our main website, but it's developed in such a way that distributors can go into the back office and do translations. And there are certain parts that we've included in that where they can show their own stockists that are stocking the product in their country and other local information. And we monitor quite carefully the Google Analytics in various countries and really work with them to push the website and the digital media side of things. The multilingual packaging, which we when we're developing our packaging, we always make sure that the main languages are included. And we still make, the main offering we have for distributors is that we are the only brand really operating the comprehensive range. I say that because in the nursery industry, there's lots of companies that tend to be one product companies, which distributors we've found over the years find quite difficult to build. They want to build a brand, they want to build a selection of products, they want to get some products in, work with a retailer, and then increase that range of products. So the fact that we offer a comprehensive range is something that's been seen as attractive by potential distributors. There's a couple of things internally within the office that's always been quite important to us. The graphic designer free of charge, which means that we can adapt and work with them. If they're using external graphic designers, that can be very expensive. And we've always worked with fresh graduates as far as graphic design is concerned, who've always done a fantastic job for us and really grown and developed the brand. But that facility that's available for distributors, we know is very much appreciated, and it means that they will do the advertising and will more likely do the promotion because we can do the design for them. I think the continual support from of doing market visits is important. I mean, we don't need to do a lot, maybe one a year, but actually going to the market and talking to distributors about the potential. A day's visit where you visit existing stores that are stocking our product, but also visit stores that may want to stock our products or possibly can, always leads to fantastic discussions and often leads to new business further along the line. We can advise them as you'd expect with customer service and sharing the information. And what we've been able to develop over the last 10 years by looking at all the different markets, because every market is different, are various distribution and marketing strategies that can be used, which each distributor can dip in and out of to see which is appropriate for their market. So the highlights and lowlights of working with distributors. Well, I think the highlights have to be for us some of the major retailers that we've been able to get our products listed in. Right from Carrefour Planet, which is in Belgium, various Babies R Us's around the world, from South Africa through Australia and China, Baby City, which is a big retailer in New Zealand, David Jones in Australia. A huge selection of retailers, and there's nothing more satisfying having worked with distributors to get listed in these big stores, and distributors who really understand and have followed through and worked with you really as partners to get into those stores. But it certainly doesn't come without challenges, and I think the biggest challenge that we face working with distributors is making sure that it's your product and your brand that's in their minds as often as possible. We realise we're probably not, within the baby market, we won't be their biggest brand. It's likely that most distributors will have some sort of wheeled good, a pram, a pushchair, something like that. That's their bread and butter. But it's making sure that they don't forget about Bambino Mio, that they realise the areas where they can make money. And that comes by communication, and we make sure that we're sending them information on a regular basis, not overloading them, but that general, if it's by email, which it is quite a bit, that there's stuff going in the inbox, so they're reminded about Bambino Mio, but it's stuff that's relevant. That you're setting objectives and realistic objectives with them that you can help them with and they can report back on. Sharing good practice all the time. And we've certainly as a company tended to use the carrot rather than the stick approach. I think that stems partly from the early days, where we knew it was tough, and we're very open with distributors that it's going to be tough to sell our product. It's different in many markets, and it does require a lot of work. But as you can see from the retailers we've got into, it does work, and it does pay off. You certainly see this sales tipping. We've certainly seen this sales tipping point that there's distributors that you will chase for translations and chase for answers, but you can see it almost hits a certain level when it becomes a significant part of their business. And once you've managed to achieve that, roles are reversed and they start demanding on you as a manufacturer, which is a good position to be in. Now, these are things we've learned within our business. Some people argue this about who you use for your translations. We do a lot of translations, whether it be through marketing material or packaging. Some of the disasters we've had, not major, I'm pleased to report, have been where we have gone, well, the distributor has gone to a specific translation agency, and things have been translated literally, and the literal translations aren't actually what we meant. The advantage of using distributors is that they understand your product, they're selling your product, so it can fit within their within the way they are marketing your products. Continual communication, that drip feed of making sure that that you are constantly in the mind. Be selective in reacting to feedback. I think certainly some of the biggest mistakes we've made in international business is listening too literally to our distributors. Everybody talks about listening to your customers and reacting to your customers. Problem is, if you're visiting a distributor who's maybe not doing particularly well, distributors are very good at trying to find reasons why it's your fault if they're not selling product. And there's a number of times where we've been given feedback about things, which is really a distributor trying to justify maybe why sales haven't been as good as they like to have been, or we would have liked them to have been, and we've reacted to that. I think being selective about the feedback you get and actually maybe not always taking at face value what distributors are feeding back on or inquiring further is very important. Sharing back best practice, many of the best things that we now do in international business have originated from our distributors, and sharing that with other distributors is very important. One thing we've done from day one is differentiate our export and UK functions. Many companies will just treat distributors and tap it on the end of the normal sales function. It's a temptation in a small business, but right from day one, we've always had a separate function for export, because it is very different selling to different skill set, different requirements, selling to export, selling to distributors rather than stores. And splitting your distributors into three categories. In the early days, that's quite difficult, but as things progress, it does become obvious who your key distributors are, who are the ones who really get it. We then have an intermediate group who are either new distributors, so they're building up, so they're in that middle group and they may well become key distributors, or there may be smaller countries who are never going to get to that key status because they just don't have the population to be able to do it, or the low level who are either non-performing, which you need to do something about, or they're just Iceland's or Malta's of this world who are never going to do a huge amount of sales. So that's a very, very brief overview of Bambino Mio and our experience of international business in the last 10 years.